Hey guys, welcome back into the office and welcome to today's devotional. For those of you that haven't been joining us, we are doing a daily devotional right now, and the current topic of conversation are the 10 plagues of Egypt. But before we get into this, let me invite you first of all, would you mind liking this video? If you Depending on how you watch us, we're on Facebook. We put the same video on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So if you would please like the video, share it, and if you're not yet a part of our YouTube family, please subscribe to our YouTube family. We're doing our best to get this word out there and trying to show people that we love God, love people, and doing our best to elevate the world one video at a time. So if you could do that for us, it would really help us out to be able to spread the gospel, and it'll help you out to be able to get more content that is more biblically and positively focused into the feeds that you may be viewing us on. So with that being said, get into today's devotional. We've been talking about over the last it's actually been 2 weeks now, about the plagues of Egypt and how we believe that there is a pattern found in the plagues of Egypt of how God does judgment. You know, God just isn't up there being a bully with a Bible. In fact, Scripture tells us in Matthew that we have a very loving Father, that He cares as much for the sparrow in the field and the grass of the field, that if He cares that much for them, then how much more does He care for His children? And so we know that God isn't up there just trying to announce judgment, but we also know if you've had a father or a parental figure of any kind, you know that at some point it's time to get their attention. And so that's kind of what God is doing to the nation of Egypt. He's trying to get their attention, and they've just been really stubborn. So we've dealt with the water being turned to blood or look like blood. We've dealt with the plagues of frogs, lice, and flies. We've dealt with the livestock being hit with a disease. Some scholars say that it was blue tongue disease, just to kind of put it in a more modern note. You've got the boils, representation of their health, that came up on the people and Pharaoh himself, trying to get their attention to turn their focus and turn their lives back to God. Then yesterday we dealt with the two things that kind of hit pretty close to home if you're here in England, and it was the crops. The first plague was the hail fire. It was hail mixed with fire, and it took out the crops that were still in or had yet to bloom or yet to bud. And then after that, when God still couldn't get their attention that way, he actually moved in and got the rest of the crop and the rest of the fruit that was in Egypt, and did that through a plague of locust. So God has hit their economy. He's hit their luxury. He's hit their comfort, their ability to work. He's hit their health, and now He's hit their savings accounts, because people thought at this particular period of time, they thought, well, we've got crops in the field, everything's going to be okay. We can just live off of the crops that we already have planted. Well, God said, no, I'm God. I've got an attitude. I think I'm God, and I'm going to have what I want, and you better let my people go. And the thing that's awesome through all of this is, with the exception of water, or in my opinion, there was no mention of the Israelites being spared from the plague of the water turning into blood. With the exception of the water, all of these plagues hit just Egypt. The land of Goshen wasn't touched, and that's actually one of the key focuses and the key factors for us today. Is the next plague was a plague of darkness. In fact, Scripture says in Exodus chapter number 9 that the darkness was so thick that you could feel it, that you could touch it. Now, if you've been with us for any point in time, you know that it is my opinion that God always uses the natural realm to circumvent having to use supernatural measures. And I believe there's a lot of reasons for this. And this situation is no exception. In fact, there is some archaeological evidence that prove or that show that there was a massive volcanic eruption that happened in the Mediterranean area during this period of time, and it's very possible that the ash that was spewed into the sky during this volcanic eruption was what hit the nation of Egypt and made it so dark that it felt like they could feel it. I know there's some other theories talking about an eclipse that came over, but this wouldn't be an eclipse in my opinion. I've been privileged to live through a couple of eclipses. But there was still light outside. You could still get around. You could still do things. But this was a darkness that was tangible, that you could feel, that was just all around you. And so it's my opinion that most likely the physical way that God may have done this is through the volcanic eruption that happened approximately 3,400 years ago. You can go on Google, you can look this up. But the thing that I find so interesting during this period of time, it says that the entire nation of Egypt was plunged into darkness, a darkness that they could feel, but there was still light coming from Goshen. There was still light coming from Goshen. God was protecting his people once again. Now, why was the darkness so bad? Well, I don't know if you've ever not been able to use your eyes for a period of time. I've gotten the pleasure of meeting some people that were blind and a couple that were born blind, so they've never been able to see. And if you're a seeing person and all of a sudden you can't see, that's a very disturbing feeling. I mean, just imagine closing your eyes, and you can maybe try this later, closing your eyes and walking around your own home, an area that I'm sure you know very, very well, without your eyes open. That is very disturbing. That is a very uncomfortable feeling. And I believe God did this for a purpose. Again, this is plague number 9. There's only one left, and most people know what the last one was. This is plague number 9, and it's the last time God really is trying to just get their attention before he releases true judgment on the people. And you say, well, how does darkness show us anything about the way God does judgment? Because the last thing he's going to do is he's going to take your vision. He's going to take your ability to see. And why is this? Because he's trying to get the focus back to him. I believe 100% that God works all things to the good of those who serve him. In fact, the Bible tells us this. And the last thing that God did before he really brought the hammer down, see, he could have killed the firstborn at plague number 1, but he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to have to take that measure, because those kids mattered to God too. He was trying to get the attention of the people. He was trying to get the attention of Pharaoh to turn their lives and turn their hearts back to him, or at minimum, let the people of Israel go free. But as the story goes, even with not being able to see in his own home for 3 days, Pharaoh still wouldn't let the people go. And so there's really only one thing God had left to do. And we'll talk about that tomorrow and the real implications. I mean, I don't really think God's killing any firstborn in 2020. But this example that was set in Egypt is still real today, just like the example that was set in with the plague of darkness. Guys, sometimes you just feel like I can't see past today. I can't see past the situation that I'm in right now. There's just no way for me to know what's going on outside of this. I'm sure some of you that's been locked up in this season of isolation, quarantine, and COVID-19, you may feel that way right now. What is God doing? He's simply trying to get people to turn their focus back to him. He's simply trying to get people to acknowledge that he is God and that he is in control. You say, well, I just don't believe in that. I just don't believe that God would do something like that. Well, that's your right, and I'm not trying to convince you anything otherwise. I'm just trying to show you some patterns that I find in the Bible. And I have found over the course of my almost 40 years that most of the time the Bible holds true if we really dig through and dig out the nuggets that it has for us. So I hope you guys are doing great. I hope everyone is staying safe. I can tell from some of the traffic that I've driven through here recently, everybody's getting a little stir crazy, and they're getting out a little bit more. So continue to stay safe, but remember, regardless of the situation in life, these videos were prepared for you to kind of find maybe where you're at in this season and in this process that I believe is individual for all of us. Go back and watch some of these videos. If there's a video that you would like access to that we haven't put out there yet, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and we'll try to get that video out to you. But we want people to be encouraged through this, that God isn't a bully with a Bible. He loves you, and he wants to take care of you, as shown by the fact that the light never went out in Goshen. But you still have to turn your life over to him. So if you've got any questions or you've got any comments, please leave them in the comments section. If you haven't done it at this point, please go ahead and like the video, share it. If you're part of our YouTube family and you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button with the bell. That'll let you know anytime we put out a new video. We're trying to do these so that you get notified every time we put a video out. And we're trying to keep these things short because we know not everybody's got a lot of time. Well, they may have a lot of time right now, but you probably won't have a lot of time once all of this stuff gets lifted. So we love you. We thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.